Can you all hear me? Everything's good? Awesome. Well, hello everyone. My name is JJ Asghar, and I'm a developer advocate for IBM Research. And I really do have the email address of awesome@ibm.com. No joke, you can actually email me to that. What is a developer advocate? I don't know anymore either. That's supposed to be a joke. Nobody's laughing, it's fine. So this presentation is about something called InstructLab. Who has heard of InstructLab? Okay. Who has heard of open source AI? Okay. The best way to describe InstructLab is an opportunity to create an opinionated pipeline for fine tuning. So who knows what fine tuning is? Okay. Who knows what a RAG is? Awesome. Okay. So this conversation is relatively relevant to all of y'all. By the way, I am a Texan, so I will say y'all. So hopefully that makes somebody giggle. No? Okay, that's fine. So let's go on a journey together. My goal is to get through these slides as quickly as possible so I can actually show you this working. Because one of the best parts about it is this all works on your local laptop. But before I do that, I got to prove to my boss I'm actually here. So if you wouldn't mind taking a picture of that QR code, it sends you to something called IBM Granite, which is our open source model, which, like I say right here, is like DeepSeek, but not Chinese. And you know, you don't get fired for buying IBM, right? Right? You know what I'm talking about. So, thank you. That also just hits a counter. It's just a website. Again, I'm not stealing anything. I just need to prove to my boss people are actually paying attention to what I'm saying. Thumbs up? We good? Awesome. So what is InstructLab? As I said, it's an opinionated way to be able to do fine tuning for models, right? One of the biggest problems with models as a whole is that models only know up to what it knows, right? I know that sounds weird, but if you think about it, it doesn't have any new knowledge attached to it. It has no new skills. And there's a billion different ways of now doing this. InstructLab is an opinionated way leveraging synthetic data built off of a really simple YAML file. So the idea is if you give it a spirit of questions through YAML, and it creates thousands and thousands of questions off of some base knowledge, which I'll show you here in a moment. This actually takes away a lot of the struggles with clean data, because if you just let the LLM or the teacher model do it for you, things work extremely well, which is really fun. Now, this is where I'm going to stop and quickly say, if I start using terms that mean nothing to y'all, please raise your hand. I'll make Kiram over here go give you the mic, and please ask these questions, because I want you to walk away from here with not all the knowledge in the world about this, but enough knowledge to feel confident. Because what I've learned is that you can have this conversation a million times, but if you don't understand what an LLM actually is, this means nothing to you. Does it make sense? Awesome. So please don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask questions and interrupt me. I used to be a streamer, so I'm used to, people. Do you have a question? Oh, so close, so close. Okay, let's keep going. So there's a paper called the lab method that if you go to instructlab.ai, you can actually read about it. It's an academic way of leveraging this workflow that is created. But the core value is, like I said, is a bunch of YAML files that is put into a taxonomy that talks to, or that a teacher model builds a bunch of questions off of to be able to read a bunch of documentation. Now, this brings in the conversation of when do you want to actually fine tune something or use a RAG? The analogy I use to kind of put this in perspective, and I like to call an anchor thought, is everybody knows what a librarian is, right? Again, I'm a Texan, I'm going to use my accent and all that, I'm sorry about that, but everyone knows when I say librarian, right? Thumbs up? Awesome. Well, what is a librarian? It's not just someone who puts books up onto a shelf, right? They're actually a researcher. So if you think of an AI model as a librarian, they had to go to university. They had to become somebody to actually understand how to research correctly. A librarian has access to books. That book in that library is actually your RAG, if you think of it this way. All those books, it's slow. It might not know the George Washington's house in Mount Vernon, Virginia, might not know it in its brain, but it can look it up inside the library. So it goes to the RAG to find the information to pull it out. You with me still? Make sense? Fine tuning sends the model back to university. Now what's more expensive? Putting a book in the library or going back to university? Well, it's university, right? It costs money to go to university. Putting a book, see, I like you already. You're playing with me. That's exactly what I want. The idea is it's cheaper to put a book inside of a library, but it's slower because they've got to look that up. So when you fine tune a model, you're adding new knowledge to it. You're adding new knowledge to your librarian. Now, but what does that mean? That means that brain, that librarian, it gets bigger. So there's a conversation. How much hardware can you actually run with these models? Right? As you add more knowledge to models, you need more hardware, you need bigger machines, and all of a sudden it isn't cost prohibitive after about a time, right? Because if all of a sudden you're running on H100s, you're spending 70 grand a month on computers to ask you what the George Washington Mount Vernon is. That's ridiculous. Does it make sense? I'm going through a lot here, but you all have been in this room for a while, so I want to make sure I get to the actual typing before anything else. So inside of InstructLab, there's 3 core parts, which is the taxonomy tree, again, back to the library, right, where it has a bunch of knowledge inside of it and an organization for it. There's a command line, because you actually have to interface with it, right, give it commands, and the SDG. The SDG is the synthetic data generation. That is what takes that taxonomy tree and then creates thousands and thousands of questions for you, so you can teach the model the new thing. This is the very common way of telling a model and a teacher way to be able to build these, so you can get clean data sets and off so it can teach new things. There's a whole process of QA underneath it that I'm not going to go into, but it allows you to be able to build off of this. So there are 2 different styles inside of the taxonomy tree, one called a knowledge and the other called a skill. Skills are really hard to grasp when you really think about it, but knowledge is really easy. What is knowledge? It's adding something new to the model, right? It's teaching it your payroll reasonings or your HR documentation or whatever that you want for it to be quickly inside of it. This brings us to the conversation of agents, right? Eventually, you're going to want to, as we've learned, especially today, sitting in this auditorium. It's not really a room. Presentation hall? I don't know. So let's go with presentation area. This presentation area, they talked about agentic workflows, right? Eventually, you're going to want to work in the agentic space. You're going to have to fine tune those models some way. The best part about using the InstructLab workflow is that you can just train a small model that specific knowledge it needs very, very quickly using this process. And let me show you a knowledge. Okay, first of all, I just spoiled my own thing. There we go, okay. Who all knows what Mudang is? No? Yes? I like how you laugh, thank you. So Mudang's an internet meme. It's a little pygmy hippopotamus out of Thailand. And it happened mid-last year-ish. People got really excited about it. It's already gone, that's fine. But best part is that AI models mostly don't know about these things, right? They just don't, because it happened about a year ago. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we trained our local model on this using the InstructLab workflow, all what I could have done on my laptop. I'm not actually going to do the actual training because it takes about 5 hours to run, but you can do this on your laptop, which is really cool. So if you trust me, I'm an Eagle Scout, right? I really am. I did all this on my laptop ahead of time, and you can actually see what happens with it. Cool? All right. So, if we come over here, this document right here is a markdown document. This is a bunch of knowledge about Mudang, right? It's just a simple markdown document that we reference using our Q&A.yamls. So if we come back over here, and I come over, to this link, that link, that link. Why are you being difficult? So this is actually in the public taxonomy, as you see there in InstructLab. So we actually have a public taxonomy that we're trying to add new knowledge, right? This is the community aspect of it. We're trying to get people to add new knowledge to these models so it can gain more knowledge over time, right? Because we only have the models only know what it knows up to a certain amount of time. So what you do is you create a Q&A.yaml. Who loves YAML? You're all lying. Nobody likes YAML. Nobody. No, you're lying. You're lying. By the way, I've actually met the guy who invented YAML. He was at KubeCon NA last year. His name is Iggy. Grab me afterwards. I'll show you a picture of him. He's the guy you'd imagine who invented YAML. Like, he looks exactly like what you would imagine. Anyway, I digress. So what happens here? We have a context window, and we have some questions. So what you've done, what you do is, with this lab process, is you give a section of text from that document, put it in the YAML file, you create some questions to give it the spirit of the questions you're looking for. So it kind of knows how to build questions around that space. So when it reads the whole document, it can take that kind of spirit, if you will, and it's all done with prompt engineering, and then build more questions off of that. Does it make sense? Following me? Okay, cool. So as you can see here, our context window is just a little bit of text, some questions, As you keep seeing, it goes and goes. You get about 15 of these, five stanzas with 3 questions each, or 5 questions with 3 stanzas each. And then as you see here, here's our Mudang, and that's the actual document right there that it looks for. So just like I was showing you a moment ago with that paper. So if I come over here and go to Mudang, oops, iLab, everyone's watching me so I can't type. iLab chat -s model. I have just gone completely, there we go. iLab model chat, model. Let this come up real quick. This is loading the GGUF into my local machine. Again, I can turn off the Wi-Fi. This is all local what we're doing. Give it a second. I can be like, hey, who is Mudang? Just to prove to you I have nothing up my sleeve, right? Is this a pygmy hippopotamus? No. So the model doesn't know about this, right? So what we can do is we can go through this workflow. This workflow right here, right? Where we play around with it. That's what we just did. We experimented with it. We decided to create a knowledge, right? That's what this contribution portion is. We created that Q&A.yaml. That is really bright. I shouldn't have stared at that. Then we go ahead and merge it into the taxonomy tree. And then this one released now knows about it. We just push it through the process. I can come over here. Because I don't want to do my tab complete. iLab model chat model. Who is new? There we go, right? So now, by taking that exact same Q&A file that we published out to the internet, or out to GitHub, we run through the workflow. I now have a model that knows about it. What does this mean? This means that you can take your knowledge, you don't have to put this out on GitHub, you can do this internally too, but you can create specialized models by leveraging just a little bit of base data. This is insanely powerful. This means you don't have to create tens of thousands of questions. This means you only need to make 45 with some base data, and from there be able to train your model. Do you understand how powerful that is? That saves so much time and effort, because fine-tuning is valuable. But at the same time, it's an accordion. Sometimes it's not valuable because it's going to cost so much money to train it. But at other times, you need that quick knowledge. You need that librarian to be able to have that knowledge very quickly. Now, I went through a lot there. There's a lot of terms. Who has questions? I have a mic. I'll make him run.
thanks for showing the demo. I think.
Oh, I can't hear you at all.
Oh, you can hear me. Can everyone else hear me?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So I was just curious, like, what is the base model of this? Like, and also the second question is, because everyone contributes to your open source repository, how do you ensure that there's no duplicated data, somebody putting some malicious stuff? And
he's not a plant. Those are genuine questions. Thank you.
I work for AI company.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. So first question, what is the base model? That was actually that QR code at the very beginning. The IBM Granite model is the base model we're using. Specifically speaking, as you see here, this is the Granite 7B model. There's also a Granite 8B model out, and there's also a Granite Vision that just got released today. So we have multiple, so unlike, okay, take a step back. Let's talk about the Granite models as a whole. There's two different camps when it comes to AI. There's the idea of having the big, massive model that does everything, and then there's the idea of having model families that are different models that are focused on very specific jobs. Personally, I have kids. I want the world to survive, so I like the idea of scoping my work on hardware that actually does more, does the best it can, compared to boiling the ocean. Our friends over in the Silicon Valley or in Redmond, their big models that they're coming out with, how much power is that using? It's insane, right? It genuinely is. It's bonkers how much energy these things take. The models over in the Granite space from IBM, they are focused on very specific jobs. The Granite 7B and the Granite 8B model, they're large language Q&A models. So you can ask your questions, bring it back and forth. Did I answer your question on that one? Awesome. And the second question was, oh, how do I check this stuff? Yes. So one of the problems that we found, and this is a great antidote, is because we're doing all this in the open source, right? As you saw, right here, nope, that's not it. As you see, we're actually doing this inside of pull requests, right? We actually have a collection of people who have volunteered to look at these questions and answers, to actually be the experts in the space. And we do have access to some academics. So when some people come with academic things of like fluid dynamics and shit like that, we can actually give it to them to be like, is this true? We have no idea. We're all software engineers, right? We don't have that person on. If you think of it as the way doctorates are done, that they read people read the papers, or peer reviews. It's peer reviews. We have a peer review system. But one of the best ones that caught was jokes. All right, so bear with me for a second. I'm an American, right? I have really stupid dad jokes. I make stupid dad puns all the time. Our first examples were dad jokes because we're IBM and Red Hat are US-centric, right? So we made jokes because it was easy. Well, we made a bunch of dad jokes, and my friend, his name's Arnaud, he lives in Paris and Stockholm. He goes back and forth. And he literally stood up in one of the meetings like, JJ, what the hell does this mean? And I looked at him dead in the eye and I realized he doesn't get US-centric dad jokes. The puns don't make any sense to him. And that was a moment that we realized, wait, we were biasing our model on US dad jokes or Western-centric dad jokes. Our competitors, will they ever say that? Will they ever openly say that to the public, saying, you know what, we don't want to be US-centric, we want to be global. We want to have a global audience using this and be safe and feel that they have the opportunity to contribute to this, right? So we have checks and balances, for lack of a better term, to have those conversations. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Awesome. Please.
So let's say you have a very big data set of information, maybe the company's Notion and Slack and stuff like that. Or maybe you want to do something with I don't know, case files for a trial or something. How do you do this and it still be sensible? Because if you're gonna write all these questions yourself, this is gonna be a crazy amount of work, right?
Great question. So first to answer your unprompted answer, but I'm going to answer a question you're probably asking. what kind of format do you need to actually be able to do this work? Right now, the source material or the knowledge material that needs to build the questions off of needs to either be Markdown or PDF. But we have open sourced this project called Dockling out of Zurich IBM Labs, where it actually does a lot more, and it is really cool. So if you need to convert your documentation into readable formats for the different ways of training models, if anything, you should walk away with Dockling more so than InstructLab. I didn't say that out loud, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry, boss, wherever you are. But seriously, this project is really freaking cool, right? So if you do need to do document conversion, take a look at that. Now to answer your question, if you have a lot of documentation, how do you deal with this long term, right? Because notions change, wikis change, things like that. That's kind of where the advantage of InstructLab comes in. Because it's an opinionated workflow, just like we do with our community model build, the thing that actually takes the public taxonomy and creates a new model off of it, the build process is repeatable. So we're not quite there yet because we've run into some logistics problems. If we decide to have a beer after this and I'm not on stage, I'll have a longer conversation about the logistics problem. But you can run this workflow over and over and over again to be able to actually build that model every single time brand new, and then you can version the model off of that, right? So yes, I understand, okay, let's talk about like where models come from and the pedigree and stuff like that. I totally get that, that's another conversation. But the idea is you just run it through a weekly process or however often your data is updated to be able to get that knowledge, and you have a release process to do it. Did I answer your question?
So just from my understanding,
yeah.
Is this creation of the questions and answers and the snippets,
yeah.
Is that automated or is it something that you need to do manually? Because otherwise, if you do it manually, you can just have a clerk read everything and keep it in mind.
Yes, sorry, I missed that part, thank you. So we have actually made a conscious decision to make sure all these Q&A.yamls are written by a human. Because if all of a sudden, everyone naturally comes to the point of like, why don't I just get an LLM to read my document and give me a bunch of Q&As? Well, then it's turtles all the way down, right? Humans are no longer involved in the process if you automate just that portion, because everything else can be ran, right? But you need a human in there to actually make sure that the question's good. You need a human to actually understand it, because remember, you're doing the spirit of the question, right? Where you're trying to give the teacher model the ability to interpret what you're trying to ask for. And I didn't have a good example there, but I can show it in a second. It can read tables, right? So if you give it a bunch of tables and a bunch of answers inside of questions, you can work with that. How much time do I have? I got 6 minutes. One of the most interesting workflows that we have is, not that one. Bear with me 1 second. So one of the challenges we've realized is documentation for a public model is actually really hard because copyright, right? One of the questions was, how do you deal with copyright and things like that? So we have to find open source knowledge bases that are allowed to be used inside of the stuff. For instance, the US federal budget is actually published as a public domain, but there's someone over in the United States right now that just took it off the website, so this might actually be one of the only places you can get access to it, which is very funny when you think about it. Again, we can have a beer afterward if you want to have more conversations around my true feelings about that person. But as you see here, we have a markdown table in here that we've trained the model, which I don't have an example model of this one because we're running it through the actual community model build right now. But it actually can read this chart. Now, think about that for a moment. It can read text, and it can read a chart and actually answer questions with some basic math, where you can be like, what was the change of, where was it? Was it this one? Here we go. That one right there. By it being able to read the chart and see that difference, you can ask it more questions around that. So then now it knows the spirit. Oh, I need to know the difference between the changes of these cells. So now I need to look at all these other cells and build questions and answers off of that, which is really, really powerful, because now it's no longer just an intern, it's a second-year intern. Nobody laughed. Oh, you laughed. You got my joke. You got my joke. But the idea is, and I was going to do basic math and actually come out with some really interesting data points, because now you can interact with it more and more. Does that make sense? Did I answer that? I feel like I did. Yes? Cool. All right, I got 4 minutes left before they're going to kick me off the stage. What else can I answer? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you. So try again? No? They're not paying attention. Just can you yell?
Yeah.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I noticed you're using GitHub to do PR and everything, but have you also looked at doing a CI process in GitHub Actions so that it continuously builds it?
So, I'm not supposed to show this out, I'm not supposed to show this publicly, so y'all are not seeing this. Y'all are not seeing this. But the best part about this is that it's actually just a handful of commands. This is the actual build script we use on the community model build, the thing that we're trying to do for the big side. It's only a handful of commands that you can get from docs.instructlab.ai, where you can turn this into a GitHub action very easily. Only reason why we haven't actually done that yet is because we have to use self-hosted runners, because the machine that we run this on has 8 A100s inside of it. Yes, 8 A100s. And I can bring it up and prove it to you that it exists. And it's actually running right now. But this is to get them community model, because you're using unquantized full safe tensors from Hugging Face to do all this work. But on your local laptop, if you want to run it on a Mac, this is all you need to do to get it to work. So go to docs.instructlab.ai, and you can actually run this on your local laptop right now, which is really fun. I realized I went through a lot of stuff here, and I jumped a lot of different parts, but they only gave me 30 minutes to talk about this. I will go stand over there after this and answer any other questions. Hell, I'll keep my laptop open and we can hack on it a little bit together too. But I really hope I've at least piqued your interest into seeing what is possible here, and then with that, maybe have your AI journey be a little bit easier. Cool? Thanks, y'all.